Hi, so I wanted to give you an overview, or actually just an example of what your finished educational profile project might look like. So before we get started, I want to just say a little bit about this project and why it's important. So this is a small group project, and it's designed to help you explore different opportunities within the field of education. So the Michigan Department of Education requires educator preparation programs to make sure that there are opportunities for students to explore the field of education, even beyond teaching. So although all of you are planning to be teachers, there are other professionals in the field that you're not only going to work with, but you might actually want to pursue later on in your career. So the purpose of this project is for you to actually do a little bit of research on a role in education that you're not currently pursuing, but that is important to education. And so you're going to be grouped with 3 to 4 classmates, and each one of you is going to choose a different role. I am going to go back to Blackboard and show you where the written instructions are, so you have those too. For this, I just wanted to show you an example of what it could look like. This is using Canva. Canva is free to you, and you wouldn't get all of the abilities that Canva has by using the free version, but you get enough to make a pretty good presentation. So the student that actually completed this project used Canva, and I'm going to show you her project now. Um, but in the meantime, I just want you to remember that the purpose of this project is for you to explore the field of education beyond teaching. So, what are the different roles that are available, and what purpose do they serve in education? So, some examples you might consider are school administrators, school superintendents, speech and language pathologists. So, teachers work with speech and language pathologists all the time. Physical therapists, occupational therapists, school social workers, counselors. So, school counselors are really important, particularly at the secondary level. There are behavioral specialists, there are literacy specialists, math specialists, and then there are teacher consultants. If you are studying general education, you might actually pursue or do some research around special education roles, like what does the intention of the special education teacher. So there are just some examples. There are a lot more in the explanation of the project, which I'll show you in a different video. So for now, I just want you to understand what the purpose of this project is, because you're going to need that when you do your presentation. So again, this is part of Michigan Department of Education's requirements. So the research that you do for this project should take you at least 10 hours. So I'm going to give you an example as we move forward. So the next slide is just your title slide. So you're going to call it the Educational Profile Project, who put your name in there as the author, and then SBE 250. You can use whatever design background that you want. This student chose a chalkboard, which I think was fitting. So choose an engaging background, or you can keep it pretty simple. It's just up to you. Like, your personality should show through in your presentations as well. So the next slide, you're going to actually state the purpose of the project. Okay, so this individual clarified it using bullet points, and she captured all of the important information. The next slide is actually, one of the things you might want to do after the purpose is insert a slide that talks about what role you chose and why. So that slide is missing in this example, but you might want to include that. So then she chose principles. So if you did principles like a previous slide talking about like why you're interested in researching principles, that'd be really helpful. So then she created a slide explaining what principles do, why their role is vital, what their key responsibilities are, and their overall purpose. Now, mind you, when you look at her slides, she just has key points bulleted. You don't want to write all of the information on the slide, because you're actually going to present this like I am. You want to use PowerPoint slides to engage your audience, because you're going to present your slides to your small group. Put key elements on the slide, and then you can use the notes slide to put in things that you want to remember, or you could create a little notes guide, so when you're presenting, you don't forget what you want to talk about. But the idea is that you just put the important things on the slide and then you fill in all of the details about it. That's how you use PowerPoints, and it's really important that you learn how to use PowerPoints effectively now because you might use them in the future. So don't write everything word for word on the slide as if you're writing a paper. You just want to put the key ideas on there, and then you're going to use your presentation time to fill in all of those details. So she talked about what principals do and used bullet points to identify those, which is great. The next slide is where she broke down the demographics. So you're going to actually do some research around, what is the gender breakdown for principals. And you're most likely just going to find a gender breakdown by male and female, but you could actually do a little bit of additional research and look for, are there principals that identify as non-binary or trans, because those statistics would be important, particularly because this class is all about diversity. So we want to really focus in on all of the identities that make us who we are. So it's important for us to know how many principals actually identify as non-binary or trans and how many are male and female. Then you're going to talk about the demographics by race. So how many principals, what percentage of principals are Black, white, Indigenous, Alaska Native, Hispanic. So you're going to do that breakdown. And you'll notice that she actually includes the citation in there, which is what you should do too. So she used Zippia. That was a pretty common source for this information. Then she actually targeted the LGBTQ plus community to find out how many principals actually identify as part of the LGBTQ plus community. And then other. So you can think about what other demographics are important: rural principals, suburban principals, maybe private school principals versus public school principals. So you really can dig into the demographics, and that's what we would expect you to do. Okay, so the next slide is the research around credentials. So what is required to be a principal? Do you need a master's degree, a doctorate degree? Do you need, teacher certification? What are the different credentials or qualifications that are required for principals? And so she went, her research took her to the National Center for Education Statistics, and she found that information. Then you're going to talk about the salary range. So she could do a little bit more detailed research here in terms of, she did it US wide. It would be really interesting for you also to take a look at what's the average salary for principals in the state of Michigan. The reason hers is a little more, I would say, generic is because when she completed this project, she had to actually do 2 roles. So you're only being asked to do 1. So she actually compared principals and superintendents. So she had twice as many slides as what I'm showing you. But when you are looking at the salary of the role that you're researching, look for the salary nationwide, and then look for the salary in the state of Michigan. And then if you're thinking about, working outside of Michigan, look for the salary range in the state wherever you plan to work. So you can do a deeper dive, and that would be what I would expect, is just a little deeper dive when you're thinking through, like, what's the salary range for the role that you are researching. Okay, so the next slide is the prevalence of opportunities. So in other words, if you were to be a school principal, what are the opportunities available to you? So is it a highly sought after job? Are there very few jobs available? So you want to look at the job outlook. So if you look, it's between 2023 and I think she meant 2023 and 2024, only 1,600 principals are estimated to leave their job. And then when you find these types of statistics, I want you to do some critical thinking around these. So why? Why might there only be a few principals that leave their job? Like, what do you think makes them stay? And you actually do some research around that too. Like, do a little research around, like, you could use keywords like principals leaving the profession, or longevity of principalship. So do a little bit of additional research around your particular role. Because like I said, you're just doing the 1 role. So the expectations that you dig a little deeper. I'm going to go back a slide for a second. I want to go back to the demographics of principals. I also want you to do some critical thinking here. So when you look at gender, so 55.4% of all school principals are women, 44.6 are men. So I have a question about this statistic right here. Is this elementary school principals? Is it secondary school principals? Because typically, when you look at the research, these statistics are backwards. The percentage of principals is higher for men than it is for women. So I have some questions about this data here. So I want you also to think deeply. So when you are ready to present your research, you're going to share the statistics, but then what I want you to do is share with your group why you think that is. So when we look at the LGBTQ plus, so 16% of all school principals belong to the LGBTQ plus community, only 16%. That's a very low percentage. So I want you to be able to think about why that might be. Could it be higher and people and principals just don't disclose? Or do you think that it is actually only 16%? And then talk about why you think that is. And then your feelings about that. Because this class is all about diversity, equity, inclusion, culture, being responsive, I want you to think critically about these concepts. Okay. So dig a little bit deeper in all of the work that you're doing. Okay. All right. So opportunities. Now there's a slide for pros and cons. So being a principal requires dedication, passion, and time, and it can have its challenges, but also its benefits. So do some research around what are the benefits of being a school principal, and then what are some of the drawbacks. And then again, be able to add something to this. So as you're doing your research, make notes of things that you want to share with your group when you're presenting. Why are these considered benefits, and why are those other things considered drawbacks? And are the drawbacks related to race, gender, LGBTQ plus status, ethnicity, religion? So think about those things as well. Then the next slide, you're actually going to do testimonials. So I would like you to find 2 testimonials for your role. Again, she found one because she was actually doing 2 different roles. So she found a video on YouTube, a day in the life of a principal. So she actually went and found a video where the principal is actually talking about what it's like to be a school principal and what they enjoy about it. Again, pros and cons. And then you can also choose to use social media and you can look at if you're a social media user, you can look at TikTok, Instagram, Facebook to find people who actually hold those roles and what they're saying about their jobs. A lot of people are on TikTok talking about their jobs and how they feel about their jobs. So you could likely find some testimonials there. You could also find testimonials sometimes on school websites. People will talk about their jobs, but there are, for all of the different roles in school, you'll find a Facebook group where those people share their experiences. So there's special education teacher groups, there are speech and language pathologist groups, there are physical therapists, school physical therapist groups. So you can find testimonials from people. The other thing you can do is if you know someone who is currently serving in that role, you could actually reach out to them for a testimonial. Ask them, like, what are the best parts of your job and what are the parts that are really difficult? And then you can include that in your presentation. And then the final slide is you're sharing the importance of being culturally responsive in this role. So because, again, this class is about reaching and teaching diverse learners, it's about building relationships with families who come from different backgrounds than the backgrounds you come from. It's important to think through these roles. So as a school principal, why would it be important for a school principal to be culturally aware and responsive to the needs of all of the students in the school? So I want you to, this is going to require you to use some critical thinking. You can also do some research and find articles that are specifically related to this topic. And then your final slide will be your references. Now, your references should always be formatted in APA 7th edition. These are not. So you'll want to make sure that when you're citing websites, you are citing the name of the website, the title of the page that you're using, and then the web address for it. So make sure you're using APA citations to post your references. Okay, so hopefully that helps. Just remember, as a guide, your slides are intended as kind of like as outlines for the information. You are going to be responsible for providing all of the details that you learn. So make sure as you're putting your presentation together, you keep some notes about, okay, on this slide, so on the purpose slide, this is what I'd like to add on that. For the what your principals do, like you want to keep notes of like, these are the key responsibilities, but this is also what I know, and this is the information I don't want to forget to share. Okay, so use your slides as an outline, but fill in the detailed information when you actually present the project to your small group.